Merlon Devine is a talented saxophone and flute player in the world of contemporary jazz. Devine made his debut in 2002 with Due Season, and since then has released works such as Breathe, Now, and most recently Soul Jazz. We will interview him now on 6 Zeros. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Jay, and welcome to another edition of Music Mondays here on 6 Zeros. Today, I'm joined by the one, the only, Mr. Merlon Devine. How you doing today, Merlon?
Hey, I'm good, Jay.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. For those that don't know, Merlon Devine is an amazing, as we said in the intro, amazing saxophonist, flute player, has a slew of amazing albums. So to begin, let's start with your background. You come from a musical family. Your dad played the guitar. Your mother was a singer, and some of your siblings started picking up singing as well. How did you what gravitated you to the soprano sax?
Yeah, Jay, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for for having me and asking me to be here with you today. Man, it's an honor. All right. And yeah, you're right. So I grew up in a big family, Little Rock, Arkansas. And I don't know well, I know where they came up with the name Merlon, but that's a story within itself. But I'm the eighth child. So it was, grew up in a house singing all day. My mom sang, dad played the guitar. He was a pastor, so we were in church all the time. And that was just what we did. We put our hands to something, either the organ, drums, the bass guitar, lead guitar. So for me, I really wanted to sing, Jay. And I just didn't have that gift, man. And I went through a lot to really come to terms to find out, okay, singing is not for you, it's not for everybody, but that doesn't mean you can't be still involved in music. And my mom helped me with that, man. She took me on this course. I started on guitar. Well, my dad started teaching me guitar. Then my mom took me to piano. And then from there, I saw the saxophone and I knew that the saxophone was the voice for me, to the instrument rather, to allow me to get my voice out.
That's awesome. So I learned two things just now. I've been pronouncing your name wrong for years and years. It's Merlon.
Merlon, that's it.
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
Oh, it's okay, Jay. Man, I've gotten worse than Merlin. And in fact, I hear it so much that it's like, oh yeah, it's cool. We'll get it together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll never make that mistake again. So that's cool though. So you when did you figure out that your singing career was never gonna pop off? Was it when you tried to sing without a backing vocal and you're like, hold on, when it's just an instrumental, it don't sound as good.
Well, every Sunday night at our church, we would have right before church service started in the evening, we would have family hour, and all the families in the church were encouraged to allow their children to just do some type of gift, do some type of artistic display, whether it's painting, whether it's speaking or singing in our case. And our family always sang. And so my older siblings would get up there to sing, and I would just run up there with them because I'm part of the family. And I was singing with them. And on the ride home, there was some interesting conversations from my siblings to my mom of, why is he coming up there to sing with us and he can't sing. And it just went over my head. I kept on going, and she finally pulled me to the side and said, listen, it's okay that you're not being able to sing with your family. You don't have that gifting, but you are gifted, you're talented. I know music is in you. Let's find out. So she really encouraged me to go, let singing alone, just leave it alone for the moment and start to really focus in on what my really gifts were, what my true calling was. And I appreciate her for that. I mean, I'm so grateful to her for just saying, hey, don't do this. Let's find something else for you.
That's a beautiful thing because playing instruments or singing in music in black church, period, you gotta be hitting. If you're not, I played trombone in church,
Yeah.
and if you're hitting the wrong notes, it almost sometimes feel like you're playing for James Brown. You're ostracized. So how did you get your first big break on the sax? So you picked up the sax, you started practicing, and I heard that I read that you've done some work with Ben Tankard. Is that correct?
That's true. That's true. And that was, I would say, I would agree with you. That was one of my the first big break I had. I listened to Ben Tankard from when I began playing the sax. I would see him at our national convocations playing on his keyboard, his guitar, and man, I tell you, he would. Sorry about that. He would inspired me that there was another side of this music called jazz, and in church now, because we really wasn't doing that in church. We were singing hymns and just choir songs. And he came out and he was doing some amazing music. And so just kind of fast forward about 5 or 6 years later, I'm still playing, still practicing and trying to get better in my craft. The church I was attending had him as a guest for a Christmas function, and they asked me to open up for him. And it was an honor. I did my thing, and then later in his show, he said, "Hey, where's that sax player? Get him to come back on the stage. I want him to play on this song with me." And so that was our big connection right there. And from that point forward, we stayed connected. I ended up recording on 2 of his CDs. He's done some production for me on some of my CDs, and he's just an amazing friend and amazing musician and amazing artist.
That's a beautiful story. So when he called you back on stage, you had to improvise?
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of his songs. I heard it before. I can't
Okay.
remember what song that was now, but when he started playing it, I was like, yeah, man, because that was the one from his current CD at the moment. And so
Okay.
had all his music. So I was ready. And I just kind of flowed with him, and we had a connection right then.
That's amazing. So segue into the present, you've released 7 albums up to this point, correct?
That is,
And
no, 9.
9. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
there's some 2 hidden ones.
Well, there was
Okay.
one before Due Season that was called My Hope is Built. So Due Season was
Okay.
actually my second full CD. And then we did a single release in there as well, 6th or 7th release. So I count that as a recording. So I would say 8 to 9.
Okay, awesome. So what 9 albums, they have this signature distinct sound. Like you have a sound that it I often find it hard to explain. When I first heard it, I'm like, what is this? This is amazing sounding music. But I'm like, it's not smooth jazz. It's not traditional jazz. It's like a fusion of a bunch of different Black American genres. It's amazing. So how would you categorize it?
I would say it's in my latest CD is called Soul Jazz. And I think I was just basically coming to terms with that's really what it is. It's a mixture of a lot of things, just as you said. My experiences from growing up in church of wanting to sing but couldn't sing, but so now I could play the sax. So now what was I wanting to do when I was trying to sing? Now I just do it through the
Mhm.
sax. It's influenced by my mom singing, my sisters and brothers, they're singing, as well as my studying and listening to other artists who play the sax, like Kirk Whalum, Najee. Um,
Yes.
Even started out, Kenny G was the first one I listened to, like George Howard, Grover Washington Jr. So all those or it just kind of fused together, all those styles, and so much soul, as well as some jazz with that as well. And that's kind of been my approach. And I feel like what allows me to do that at churches is because, David did that. The Bible talks about how David played his harp before
Mhm.
Saul, and that every time he played his harp, Saul was refreshed, he was healed, he was made well. And that just ministers to me because it doesn't matter what style or what song he was playing, every time he played, it got the same positive effect in Saul's life. And I believe that happens uh, with me because I feel like my music is right from God's heart into my
Yeah.
heart. And I just release it out as I hear it, as I get it. And it most, I think, matches up to the style of smooth jazz. But you're right, it has a lot of other characteristics as well.
Yeah, what I like about it, and on our site, we have a smoothness index for smooth jazz. And what I like about your music is you don't smoothen it out so much that it doesn't have a beat. Like your music is hip, and we'll,
Wow.
we'll play a sample of Stirred, and you can hear it. Just it still bops, it
Yeah.
still moves, it makes you want to dance, but it's smooth and in the instrumentation on top of the beat, like the beat is very straightforward,
Yeah.
but the instrumentation on top of it is very jazzy. It's just a really cool blend, and I like it because I listen to a lot of smooth jazz, and a lot of stuff on the radio is just way too smooth. It's like it really is elevator. I could play your music at a jam and every at a party, and everybody starts jamming. So that's what I
Wow.
really appreciate about your music.
That's cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now on to that point. In on last year on in October, you released Third, which is your third single from Soul Jazz, correct?
Correct.
So how's reception been first Third?
You know, it's been very well. I do a lot of dates at churches. So, and I have a unique kind of opportunity. I get to go to churches every Sunday and share the music that I write and take it to them. And so they don't have to leave the church to go to a club per se or a jazz event. I can take some of that to them on a Sunday morning. And I hear so many of them say, man, I appreciate that because I really don't venture out to go to these places. And now you come here and I get to hear and feel what I would possibly pay to go to a club or a jazz event to go here. And you bring it here. And I feel like it's inspiring me. I feel like it's from a positive place as well. And so I get to do that every Sunday. So it's received very well when I go out from Sunday to Sunday, to church. And it did well also on the radio also. A lot of stations picked it up all over the country. So we're amazed and thankful for that.
That's good to hear. Before I go to my next point, I want to play a sample of Stirred.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like the name of this song is so appropriate because that beat, when it hits that verse, I'm like, maybe this is what they meant by stirred because
Yeah.
I'm expecting that snare to hit on that the second beat, but you give me a kick and then you have that snare on the four, and it catches you off guard when it transitions from like the chorus into the hook, but then you catch right back on. I love it. Is that why
Yeah.
you named it third?
Yeah. So Matt Godina, who's an amazing producer, he produced that track for me. And I write probably 95% of my music. I just write it and then I send it out to the producer and say, hey, check this out and see if you can, do some music around it. And so this one was done that way. I wrote it first and I sent it to him. But what he sent back was a great interpretation of exactly what I felt about the song. The song Stir is talking about each and every one of us. We have a gift inside of us. The Bible talks about it clearly as well and says that, Jesus has given us each a personal gift, each one of us. And it's up to us to use it to be a blessing to others. And then there's another passage that talks about stirring up the gift that you have. And so I put those two thoughts together, and that's where this song kind of came up. And it's just to shake up things. That's why that beat doesn't come in right when you think it
Yeah,
comes in a little second, then the kick first, and then the snare. Because I really want to stir up the listener and just really drive that point in that it's our responsibility as the owner of these gifts to make sure we keep them fresh, keep them sharp, and keep them in use. That's our job. So that's where Stir came from.
that's awesome. So when you wrote it, how do you write it? Like, what's your process? Do you play all like most of the parts on the sax and then have someone interpret it, or how does that work?
A lot of times I'll hear the song from the beginning to end. I'll hear the verse, the chorus, I'll hear the bridge, and even the vamp, and I'll just play those things into my session here without any music. And a lot of the producers I work with are like, "Wow, man, your music is already done. All I have to do is just fill in the holes." A lot of times that's how I'll write it because I'll get every piece of it that I hear out and then they'll add to it. Now, so I have some great music too that's been done by producers from the reverse way, where I can just write to what they're doing. But for the most part, that's where it starts. I'll hear a melody, and I'll just drop it down. Then I'll hear a verse or a chorus, and and it just kind of comes together as I'm listening.
Okay, so for the listeners, when you say drop it down, is it like you have a digital audio workstation in front of you, maybe a keyboard, and then you lay it down in the software and then send it to the
Yes,
producer?
yes.
Okay,
I use Logic, and I'll just draw and just create a session, and I'll plot out the tempo, and then I'll just start recording. I say, okay, that's my 8 bar verse, or that's my 12 bar verse, and then this is the hook, or this is the chorus section. I'll lay that in, and I'll just put it together. But what I send out is just sax. So,
okay.
so it's just that way they can hear what they give me back is totally them interpreting my music and not me saying, okay, take this 4, the 6, and then the 3 chord. I really want them to put their take on it because I feel like that's where the magic is going to come together when I find the right producer for my thoughts.
And I think that's a great point. And I think we lost some of that mojo with computers coming into music, because a lot of the times it's one person playing every single part. And you lose some of that magic that, like, especially from the 70s, where you have all these different talents coming together, you're having a jam session. It was magic that came out of that. So the fact that you lay down the sax part, you'll send it over and then let them put their creativity into it.
Exactly.
You can hear it in the music, and music sounds phenomenal.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
you're welcome. One thing that is super admirable about you and respectable is that you're a man of conviction. You can see it on your social media. You have your family there. You're stomped down about your commitment to the Lord, and I love that. So, what role does faith play in your career?
Oh man, a major part. I'm a believer. I believe, from when I accepted Christ at the age of 12 or 13, back in my dad's church, and from that point forward, I knew that this was going to be my mission was to get him to the world through music and whatever place he places me, whether it's at a church or if I'm at a wedding, if I'm at a company function, if I'm at a whatever, a jazz concert, it's my job and responsibility to make sure what I play, what I say enlightens someone to see Christ, to see how I believe. And it can be subtle, it can be strong. It just has to be something that comes through my music and with my actions. And I knew that that has to be a constant for me. And that's been a constant. And my family, my wife, yeah, I'm married, man. That's my girl. Been married 28 years. And we have 3 kids. So I'm a family man. I'm a man that's married. So I love those aspects of life and living. And I try to let that flow through my music and my life and my presentation, even on social media.
How do you balance that? So, because you're in a worldly industry, and but you're very conscious and godly. So, how do you balance that? Where or do you feel like you have to balance it, or are you just genuinely you, and then whoever accepts it doesn't?
Well, no, I believe it's our job to, in whatever area that we're placed in, whatever sphere of influence we have, to use that positioning that we are in to again be a light. And Bible talks about we can't be a light and we put a bushel over it, or we call it
Hmm.
a light that sit on a hill. We're supposed to position ourselves so that we can be seen and felt. Our presence, that God's presence in us, can be felt by others. So I have to just turn it on, no matter where I am. I don't think that we can't be in certain areas. I don't think it's wrong for me to be at a jazz club or at a festival outside, or it's just what am I adding to that place,
Hmm.
and hopefully I'm adding Christ and a light and a positive outcome to people's, outlook.
That's awesome. So what if like you were at a festival and the promoter was like, I just want you to add the music as a person of faith. How do you negotiate those type of situations?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's certain things I probably, well, what's going on? What kind of event is it? I mean, I don't think I have to go everywhere just because I'm a Christian. Or I can decide I don't want to be there. I can decide, well,
Yes.
that's not something that I want to do. But I know that whatever I do decide to do, I have now a responsibility to be a light wherever that is. You know what I'm saying? There's some places or some people may be called to certain areas that I'm just not. But I know God wants to be everywhere. He needs people everywhere to speak to whatever situations and circumstances are going on. I bet you there's a God voice there. They just got to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just, again, I know where I'm supposed to be and I just go with those places, you know?
And I really, that's one of the things, like I said before, that's what I really appreciate about you. And even if someone is not a believer, I think just seeing your conviction and you standing on your principles is important for people to see. Like, you don't always have to sell out who you are
Right.
for fame and fortune. If you have your personal beliefs, stand strongly in them, because you can still find success. You just got to find the success in the right avenue where you're accepted. You don't have to change who you are to fit into a society that in some cases it might not be the best thing for you. It might be sick, and
Yeah,
you might put yourself in a sick position for financial gain, and it's not always the best.
that's right. That's right, man. Exactly.
So are you working on another album?
At this moment, no. I just finished Soul Jazz in 21, June of 21. And so I've been touring on that project. And now I'm at this place where I'm starting to just see, okay, do I want to do another full CD? Things are shifting every year from physical CDs to more digital formats and purchases. Although I still see a lot of physical purchases as I'm out on the road. So I can't say I won't carry those and present those to those who hear me play. But to make a full album of collections, maybe 10 to 12 songs at once, I don't know. I'm looking at maybe doing singles for a while
Okay.
and releasing those so that I still can keep some current music out, but I may not just dive into a whole album at this moment. Maybe over time it'll build up and then we'll release all those together. So I'm just kind of looking at some things right now, Jay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can we just dive into that? Like, so do you feel like streaming devalues the entire package of an album?
Yeah. Back from, I guess we started looking at that in early 2000s, around 2005 and 6 when the iPhone, really, that's when the iPhone got really popular, and the incorporation of music on your phone that you can just download immediately
Hmm.
started to hit and affect customers wanting to deciding whether or not to buy physical CDs from you. So yeah, I would say the digital streaming uh, market has affected the physical CD sale market. Definitely.
Yeah, and especially like what's in the contemporary jazz market is it was the sales weren't like even the top sellers weren't like triple, quadruple platinum. So if there's an overall decline, it's definitely going to impact contemporary jazz significantly. So I can understand that going to the singles, dropping singles, and it kind of matches this instant gratification, like short attention span kind of world that we're in now. Drop one on them, let that simmer for a couple of months. I'll drop another one on you, and then
Right, right. And we grew up, where and my wife shares this all the time in our home, how an artist releasing an album or a CD was a major thing. And families would get together at home, sit around a table, and listen to that CD from the top or album from the top to the bottom. And albums,
yeah.
in our cases, they listen to side A and then they flip it over and start back and then listen to side B. And it just caused this unity within communities as well as getting to know the artist's full scope of work. You got to hear their fast songs, their slow songs, their intricate lyrics, the ones that had just a simple hook. I mean, you got to hear everything and just know them as an artist in totality. And now it's like we just hear one song, like you said, and what they're doing is scanning the whole atmosphere of music. Okay, what's hot? Okay, let me do something like that. They
Hmm.
do that. Now everybody's doing the same thing, and no one's just doing what's really a collective body of work that's in them, and you get to hear them and know them as an artist. I really like that. I miss that, and that's why I was born out of that. So that's why I've done so many CDs, because I hear, it's like I get into this zone, and the download of music comes to me, and I know, hey, I'm in the middle of an album. This is for an album, and then I start praying about
Mhm.
it, and I start meditating on it, getting it together, and then the album title comes, and then it's like, oh, wow, put it together, then I put it out there. It's a part of me that people get to listen to for a year or two before I do another one. And so I like that, and I hate that that's not the same. It's not as rich as it was years ago.
Yeah, I think that hits on two parts. It's like, okay, from the actual experiences, because like if you're streaming, you have access to 25 million songs, so it definitely devalues all the songs. I remember when my family, when we bought the Michael Jackson Dangerous
Yeah,
tape, it was an experience. It was like it's just one tape, it's these 12 songs or whatever, and that's all you got.
yeah,
It's not like you're just gonna be able to play his whole catalog at one time. But I
right.
also feel like the internet not only did it devalue in giving people access to all 25 million songs for $10, but it also devalued it in that uh everybody, all the producers, all the musicians can talk to each other now. There's no like regionalization of music kind of anymore. It's everybody sharing the same sound patches, so you end up coming out with this one national sound,
Yeah,
and it's like it's kind of homogenous now, whereas if you go back 20, 25 years, music on the West Coast sounded different than music
come
in New
on.
Orleans and different than music in New York.
That's
That's not the case anymore. Everybody's chasing a trend. They're sharing the same drum kits and patches and all that. And it's just it's kind of changed the way music sounds now.
Yeah, there was so much uniqueness because it was so diverse. Again, you could be
Yes.
in the East Coast and they had that sound, and you know, oh, that band's from the East, or
Yes.
from this band in California. Oh man, that's that West Coast vibe, or or down in the South in Louisiana, or something in Chicago. You just knew they had the sound that was reminiscent to their area and their experiences, and you loved it because it was different from maybe where you were, but you like, man, I can dig this. And so you either picked up a little bit of, you learned from it. But now you're right, with the internet and technology, there's not a lot of space and distance. I mean, I can just listen to
Yes.
somebody here and there at the same time. I can call them, I can email them, hey, give me that patch, or what you doing with this. And you're right, we can begin to sound a lot like, it has its pluses and minuses. I mean, I think it's great to be connected and to see so much of others doing what you do, and it can be inspiring, but it can also halt you because you're like, man, I'm nothing.
Yeah, it's like if you like when Prince was developing the Minneapolis sound, if you could just call him up and he'll send you all the patches and you could download them in the Logic and Reason, and then it's like, okay, the Minneapolis sound is national now.
Right, right. That was his sound. That's what we paid, and we paid attention to him because of that, because he had developed something uniquely out of who he was, and it was just so attractive. And I think that's still needed. We still need to find out our true sound, our true call, our true essence. And I really feel like that's what I've been doing with my music, is really trying to hone it and make sure what comes to me through me is true to who I am.
Yes, and for those of you that have not heard Merlon, uh, you give him a listen because he takes pride in his music and he doesn't chase those trends as we talked about. When you hear his music, I'm not just saying that because he's here. When you hear his music, you're gonna hear a difference. It's just not run of the mill, something you hear in the elevator. It's really like it's grounded. I feel like it's grounded in Black American music tradition. It does not dilute it. It just expresses it in just a pure joyful way. You could hear like when you play music, when I listen to your music, I could tell that you liked making the songs that you're making. It's not like, hey, I got to get this one on the radio. Let me just remake a Sade song and then I'm
Right.
just going to do her vocal part on the sax. It's like, oh, this is someone that takes passion. Even the sequencing on the tracks. That's another thing. The sequencing, I feel like that's a dying art, and the way the CD plays, you could just take your shuffle off, let it play, and it like tells you a story. It sounds it's really cool. Soul jazz was I really like soul jazz for that reason. even the title track Soul Jazz, how smooth it is. It
Yeah,
just like you start off with the sax playing, and then it goes dun, and it just smooth. It's just the whole album is on point. I like Now as well. I
yeah.
like all of your albums. So closing out, where can people reach you?
Wow. Yeah. So merlondevine.com, that's my website. And so you can go there, and social media, which is Instagram. That's where I keep a lot of my dates and where I'll be playing. I got to do better about putting those dates there. But Merlon Devine, everything is under Merlon Devine. Facebook, Merlon Devine. So you can scour those and you'll find out where I'll be playing.
All right, and just remember, everyone, it's a Merlon. Okay, Merlon. Let's all lock that in today. Well, it was a pleasure interviewing you today, Merlon. You've been excellent. You lived up to everything you showed on social media. Keep up the good work. And I'm Jay signing off on Music Mondays with 6 zeros. See you later.